I did it.
Remember.
It wouldn't be a Tylee presentation without some kind of technology fail, but we did it. Okay, so as I said, this is legislative basics with the Utah Statewide Independent Living Council. And JC and I are excited to talk to you about how you can make an impact for the disability community, even if you don't think that you can. Okay, so legislative advocacy, what is it? These are big words. So the gist of it is just seeing a need and finding a way for you to address it. A lot of times we think that professionals or our parents or important people in our neighborhoods are going to just do these things for, oh, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. I'm going to fix that. Screen 2. That's why that I have to do over here.
So happy to see everybody.
I
There's so many
know.
familiar names.
This is awesome. Okay, now I've got to go back here. No. That one. Fixed it. I appreciate Matt for letting me know. Except maybe I didn't. Hang on. Let's try that again. Because now you're seeing my little notes at the top.
Nope, that was it.
Oh, was it? Were you
Yeah,
not seeing the things at the top?
that looked totally fine for us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Perfect.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep, you bet.
Okay, so finding a way for you to address it. That means that the people who are experiencing life as a person with a disability are the most qualified to talk about the issues facing people with disabilities. And our lawmakers want to hear from us. They are elected officials that we vote for, so they want to know that the constituents that they represent are having their needs met. So like I said, they don't know our disability world. We're in it every day, whether you're a parent or an individual or a professional, we're in it every day. So we know the ins and outs of what it's like to have a disability. So it's our job to make sure that they understand our perspective.
Okay. So questions on your mind is what I want you guys to be thinking of as we go through our presentation. What change do we want to bring it about? What is going wrong and what is the evidence or the experience? What must change? What's an alternative? Some of these things, you guys, can be as simple as traveling with a disability. They could be sidewalks in your neighborhood that are not wheelchair accessible, or to somebody who has like a sight disability or a hearing disability. Can they access their public facilities with interpreters, or is there, what change needs to happen? And like Tylee said, I liked how Tylee said, the people with the disabilities are the experts, and you guys are. Whether you're a parent raising a child or a person with a disability, Tylee and I in our professional life work not just with the youth that have disabilities, but with our coworkers have disabilities. We travel with them, we go to restaurants, we go to meetings, and we see the obstacles they face in the community. And these are the people we need to speak up. Okay, so some of the other questions: who makes the change that we're asking for? Because that's important to know. Who has the power? So you heard Tylee say, it's not just one person that holds the power. So I don't know who even does hold the power. So we're going to find out today. Who are our allies? Allies are our people that are on our side. And then who are our opponents? So all these questions are super important for us to really have an idea. We know we need to advocate. And sometimes I feel like our youth are like just biting at the chimp with or the chomp with like let's advocate, but what are we advocating for? Where do we go? How do we go about doing it? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I just want you guys to think of those questions. And then we'll talk about it.
Awesome.
Biting at the bit.
Yeah, chomping at the bit.
At the bit. I see you guys. I knew I had it.
So you thought this was going to be just this really, what's the word?
Professional
presentation. We are real people, and this process is intimidating for us too. So as you'll see, JC and I work very well together, and we'll do our best to make this subject as entertaining as possible. So,
well, we did stretches because she said it would help.
Yeah, it'll help.
So let me know.
So this is you too.
Oh, this is me.
It's you.
So you guys, I don't mean to put this stuff up here, because I don't know if you know it or not, but I didn't know it or not. And when Tylee asked me, what do you think is important things to talk about? I said, learning the language. So this is my slide I came up with. I did not know that appropriations meant the budget or money. So I picked some of the words that I thought everybody else might want to understand more as we're going in this. And so appropriation means the budget or money set aside for a specific state program. So when I say Tylee made me go to an appropriations committee, I showed up just because she bought me Starbucks. I really didn't know what I was going to. I'm just going to be honest. I did wear a cute suit and I looked loafers. I looked the whole part. I didn't know what it meant, but I went and I learned. So it means the budget. And I was blown away. So I went there to advocate for people with disabilities and to really learn and about what I was advocating for and how money is funneled through different programs. And I thought people with disabilities, for sure, it's going to be like in the bag. There was so many great organizations advocating for domestic violence, immigration, the unhoused population. And we were sitting amongst some pretty amazing, other committees. So I was blown away by my first appropriations committee hearing. The next one is a bill. What is a bill? A bill is a proposed piece of legislation. The budget. So when I thought budget, I thought, a budget, like my husband tries to make me have a budget.
He tries.
And it's what it is, but as far as advocacy, it's the estimates of proposed expenditures, expected revenues for the fiscal year. So basically it's how the government or Utah is spending their money and where it's going. Remember that appropriations I sat in on? That had to do with a budget. So
beautifully said. Okay, so the session. We are currently in the session. It has already begun, but the session is a period when the legislature meets. So our legislative, our legislative session generally begins the last Monday in January and ends the second Thursday in March. So during that time, our representatives are creating the budget for creating budgets, and they're doing, they're voting on changes and any creation of new laws that need to take place. And it's actually best, I learned, if you want to create a relationship with your legislators, it's best to start during the interim, which is the period where they're not in session, they're beginning to prepare for the session. So that takes place in April. April. I may have just lied to you, but in the springtime. And that's a great time to invite your legislator to your agency if you work at an agency, or to make a connection with them, because during the session, our legislators are really busy. So if you ever go up and have a meeting with one of them during the session, typically you may end up meeting with staff instead of your actual representative, because they may have to run out into a session meeting. So just something to keep in mind if you're wanting to do, build a relationship with your legislators. So I keep saying these words, but what do they mean? And if you're new, it took me a minute to get these when I very first started being an advocate. So legislation means the laws or the lawmaking regulations, bills, or budget. So and then the difference is your legislator is the actual person or the lawmaker, elected official, who works to bring change to new and existing laws and works for the people. So in Utah, we are a super majority. If you've heard this word before, that just means that in both the House and the Senate, we have a majority party representative or representation. And it's listed here. So our House of Representatives in Utah serves, well, most states actually, they serve for terms of 2 years. We have 61 Republican representatives and 14 Democratic representatives. And this is a breakdown of our Senate. And I list these both in on purpose. So when we go up for the
She has an accent.
I do. When we go up for the legislative reception at the end of this week, it's important to know the difference so that you can address your representative or senator appropriately. So our senators, there's fewer, as you can see by this chart. We have 23 Republican representatives and 6 Democratic representatives. They serve 4-year terms. And we found this nifty little site that we thought would be a good one to share, but it has a really nice breakdown of how the legislature looks in Utah, and it had some really cool tips for advocating and how to contact. So we thought that would be a nice accompaniment for this presentation, because then if there's something that we forget, you can always utilize this link and find more information. So I was going to share a little story about why it's important to learn how to appropriately address your representative or senator. So my mom cuts hair, and she's cut hair my whole life and cuts hair for the whole neighborhood where I grew up. And one of her longtime clients just happened to be, at the time, Representative Kurt Webb. And I grew up with him. I was always in the shop when my mom was cutting hair. So I thought, I don't know, everyone was just friends. So I addressed him as Kurt. And when I went up for my very, very first legislative reception and I saw him there, I was there with a group of youth from my independent living center, and I completely blanked on whether he was a senator or a representative. Just, I panicked. So I said, "Everyone, this is Kurt." And I was so embarrassed because and of course, was so gracious about it. And then he corrected and said Representative Webb, and he shook hands with everybody, and it was all fine. But if you want to avoid embarrassment like I did, that's a good practice. Let's see. Okay, next.
Okay, so what is public policy? Again, the reason I defined all these is because I did not know when I started. This is something that I really had to work hard at learning. So again, I picked the things that I thought we could talk about today so that you guys understood as well. The decision-making, so public policy is the decision-making process that leads to the development and implementation of laws, policies, rules, and procedures that impact our lives. When someone says public policy, it's not just like a one-person deal. It's a whole web of things: laws, policies, rules, procedures, and then implementations of the policies. So it's kind of a big deal. And again, I really had to learn. Okay, so that means we don't just advocate once and move on with our lives. As new people come into office, we start all over again. And like Tylee said, building relationships with lawmakers is important because it's important they see us as a community. Okay, we start over again, teaching our lawmakers about disability issues and things that affect us as a group. Might I add, a lot of our lawmakers don't have disabilities themselves. And I can't tell you how important it is to have the advice of a Utahn living in Utah with a disability. That makes our group kind of important. I sat in a few appropriations committees last year, and to hear lawmakers talk about issues, I heard a lawmaker talk about how things impacted a single mom, and he was married with 5 kids. We need the single mom. That's who we need up there, you know? So as far as people with disabilities, we need people with disabilities. I recently went to Washington, well, it seems recent, but it was last summer, went to Washington, D.C. And I thought it was going to be like it was on TV, all these important people making all these important laws. And it was a lot different. On TV, they showed this contrast of people not getting along, and Democrats and Republicans. But when we went to lunch, we all sat by each other. I saw these 2 news people from Fox and CNN, and you guys know how they have such a good relationship. So I was thinking it was like it was going to be on TV. I caught a glimpse of them talking about off camera, their kids, why they were eating a granola bar, their kids' t-ball games. So it's not what you see on TV. It's more cordial. But we need people with disabilities. We need to advocate. We need to be the face. So public policy.
So, I always like to reference back to this because, I loved Schoolhouse Rock. That was how I remembered things through songs. But this is how an idea becomes a law. The I'm just a bill. I'm not going to sing it for you because it will be recorded and someone could blackmail me with it later. But this is how the process goes, not in song. So an idea is developed, the bill is drafted, the bill is introduced, the bill receives standing committee review and public input. That's where we would come in as advocates. The bill is returned to the floor. The bill is debated in open session. The bill passes both houses, meaning the House and the Senate in the legislature. And now there's an exception to this one. Sometimes, depending on like what is entailed in that particular bill, it maybe doesn't need to go through both, but it's kind of nuanced. So I wanted to put that caveat in there. The bill is prepared for the governor's action. And the bill receives governor's actions, and then the bill becomes effective. Big, long process, but it's important that each of these steps are followed so that everyone gets a chance to speak up about it.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
Wow.
So here are a couple of the committees that our legislators are a part of. So each legislator is assigned different assignments. Every session it could change. So here's just a couple examples. So there's the Rules Committee. They decide if and where a bill is heard. The Standing Committee hears testimony and votes on bills. Appropriations subcommittees, there's multiple from different interest groups, that they hear testimony and they prioritize funding requests. So when I say, excuse me, when I say go like give testimony, that means at these meetings, there's set aside times where you can go in front of the whole committee and you can tell your story or give your statement as a person with a disability or as a parent or professional. And then there's the executive appropriations. So they kind of oversee all of the subcommittees' budgets. So they look at, and if you remember, we said before, appropriation is money. So yeah, they determine which items that the subcommittees prioritize get funded or are taken to vote to be funded. And the interim, like I said, it's they meet between sessions, and it's not necessarily a committee, but we wanted to make sure we outlined what that was.
Okay, basic advocacy. The first rule is you don't need to be an expert. You just need to care enough to get involved and speak up. And I would say learn too. I had to do a lot of learning. Your potential influence is far greater than you think. You heard Tylee talk about all of the steps. All of those steps had advocates on the other end of them pushing and not, speaking up. So your potential influence is greater than you think. Strength in numbers, guys. Speaking up won't guarantee that you will win, but not speaking up guarantees that your information will not be known. The one thing that frustrated me is I explained to you guys that appropriations I sat in, and I thought, how on earth are we going to get extra money for the community with disabilities in Utah when there's all these great other issues that need to be addressed and that need money and that like I would support. There were abused women, again, unhoused, homeless children, so many great things. But if we don't speak up, for sure, 100% we won't be heard. And it takes years to get these things in front of the right people to hear. And it takes people not giving up. Okay, the next one is your only task is to be yourself, a citizen, a voter that wants programs and policies to work for those who desperately need it. So get involved where you are comfortable. So I don't have the time to advocate Monday through Friday. I have a job, I have other obligations, I have a family, but I do set aside time to learn and understand what laws are being passed, how they affect our community, where we need to put our time in advocating. So get involved, get comfortable with the amount that, just because you don't quit your job and go picket in the front of the Capitol Monday through Friday does not mean you can't be a part of positive change as far as advocating for people with disabilities.
Yes. And like where you're comfortable could mean maybe you're not a person who is comfortable talking in front of a committee. And like, I think it's totally okay if you do write your legislator an email, or now they have a number that you can text if you're a text person.
And I'm telling you, when Tylee and I were there, we asked, the number one thing is what do you want? And they want to hear. They want to hear what you have to say. A lot of them don't have disabilities. A lot of them don't have children with disabilities. We're the experts. We need to let them know. COVID was really hard because our world went into shutdown, and a lot of our issues of people with disabilities got put on the far, far, far back corner. So I think the time is now. Okay, some golden rules of advocacy. I'm sure there's so many more. These are the ones that I found that I thought would be good for us to talk about. When you're advocating, be fair and respectful, be understanding, be friendly, be reasonable, be thoughtful. I mean, still advocate, you gotta, but be realistic and persistent, be practical, be a good component.
Opponent.
Be informed, be discreet, be a visionary. I do have one story I want to share with you guys. I thought when I was interacting with our lawmakers, like if they were Democrat or Republican or independent, I thought, what if they thought I didn't agree with them? Or what if I say something to where I'm like, wow, that law you passed was dumb. Like I was always like, didn't know what to do. So guess what I did? Before we met with the lawmakers, I went on their website and I looked at all the laws they passed and the things they support, and they all do nonprofit work. So they have like, some of them support animal shelters, some support domestic violence. And I really got to know them separate than, you know, the Democrat, Republican, independent. If I tried to be as non-judgmental as I could to really find out who they were. And I have to tell you, it gave me a way to advocate in a way that I was a good opponent. I was being thoughtful and responsible and respectful. We might not agree on what issues are the most important, but I respect them as a human being. So really work hard at putting aside judgment to, is that kind of how you explain it, Ty?
Yeah, put aside judgment, because everybody is just out there doing the best they can.
Because it's so hostile in the media, and like just things. I don't know if you guys have had any seen any interactions or negative disagreements, but honestly, if you can put that aside and talk about the issues that are important to me or to you, that's the best advice I could give.
And that's great advice. So what is your role? This is the meat. So you have some options. So remember, appropriations is money. So if you have a program that you work for, so obviously we represent independent living, and the programs that are needing funding at centers and those kind of things, we watch out for our specific world, but there's obviously so many others. But you can testify at an agency budget hearing. You can contact members of the appropriations committees and legislators. You can testify at an appropriations hearing, and or you can contact members of executive appropriation. So after you've had your chance to speak in front of the subcommittee, maybe you give them an extra little push, like, hey, I said this in this subcommittee, noticed you weren't too keen on voting for that. Would you reconsider after meeting me? Or, I mean, obviously you wouldn't word it that way, but like, just keeping that contact is a good idea. But this is how you can help the agencies that support you continue getting funding. Like we can't lobby. So lobbying is when you go in and ask for a specific amount of money. So because independent living centers and Silk suffer through like state and federal grants, we're not allowed to lobby. So we rely on the people who are receiving services to share their stories and how they're being impacted by those services. So we need you. So continued, your role in the bill process. So you can contact your legislator. That's the wrong verbiage there. Yeah, I catch myself too. About the specific bill. You can contact the standing committee members. You can testify before the floor votes. Or you can, if you really want to, you can contact the governor directly. Did we spell this wrong? I think we did.
No, it's slang.
It's
governor. It's governor.
Goodness gracious, can't take us anywhere. So yeah, so sometimes these bills will have money money notes or a fiscal note attached to them. Just so you are listening for those words they use in these meetings. A fiscal note means there's money.
The government and their money.
I know.
This kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. How to talk to others with a different point of view. When Tylee takes me places, I'm kind of a live wire. Like, you just never know what I'm gonna say. So I had to learn, I really had to learn to get to know my lawmakers and get to know what good things there are about them and get to know. I mean, could you imagine like going in front of someone who just says, I don't think disability issues are not that important right now. I think this is important, you know? And then I tip over his plant to walk out. No, just kidding. But in this section, we're going to cover more how we can get involved, and how disability affects people from all walks of life. It can be found in every religious group, from every cultural, rich, poor families. They're everywhere. People with disabilities do not discriminate. Our job is we advocate for the things we think are important for people with disabilities, but it's important to be respectful. So it says it can be challenging to have conversations with people who don't share our own views, who see the world different from us. But in these conversations, we can often allow room for multiple truths, and having open conversations help us learn and grow. I can't tell you how awkward that is and how uncomfortable it can be. I have a daughter with a disability, and they don't always know that when talking to me. I certainly don't present as someone that has a significant disability, so they would not know. But I will say, once I tell them that I have a daughter that is a wheelchair user and has a disability, they're a lot more open to listen. Okay, so first we listen to understand, not to respond, and we ask questions. I could have put so many things up here, but in a world where you usually listen to respond, listening to understand is a practice skill. It's something that I'm still working on today. It's something that I have to do on purpose that doesn't come naturally, because I do like to defend. I am passionate about people with disabilities. So if I can listen to a lawmaker say why he doesn't feel like that is an important issue, I could maybe poke holes in it, maybe understand where his thinking is, and prove him wrong. But being respectful. So don't worry, we're all guilty, just listening so we can formulate our own response. While we may be able to get with this in the short term, it's important we listen to each other in not only words, just to understand, not just to respond. Try taking a step back and listen to the person and you're having a conversation with, and ask questions and clarify. That is so important. And I don't think you're going to get in heated debates. I don't think that a lawmaker is going to be like, that's dumb. I mean, they're very, very professional. But I really wanted you guys to think about advocating for yourself in school, maybe a teacher overstepping an IEP or a 504 or not being patient, and how that makes you feel. It's kind of similar to that, where you just need to be able to convey to these people the significance and the importance in a professional manner. So we want the same from them as well. Okay, approach the conversation with an open mind. Approaching the conversation with empathy and understanding. It's normal to have conflicting feelings when you don't agree with a person or a point of view, but it does not mean you can't empathize and validate their perspective. It's also important to keep in mind that your peers likely have different reasons motivating their viewpoints and actions. Try to understand what is important to them, what they need, and how it impacts their behaviors. Avoid making assumptions. Instead, take in their perspective and life experience into account. So having meaningful conversations with people. Did anybody get in an argument with like their uncle at Thanksgiving or like, I mean, you see it on like, I was watching The Simpsons and they were having a debate at Thanksgiving and then the table got flipped. But what I want you guys to know is having a passion, which I do, and in my younger years, oh,
She would fight.
I would fight people. Like, I remember just getting, but instead, I genuinely try to now hear their perspective and understanding. And it's kind of wild. Some of the people who have been helpful to people with disabilities. I remember sitting in my first appropriations committee and not liking the guy that was talking. I don't remember what he was talking about. I think it was the guy trying to talk about single motherhood. And I was just like, yeah, because you know how hard it is. He was the guy that ended up getting our hearing for Andy to go have our spiel about independent living. So like, you just never know who's going to be, what's the word?
Your advocate.
Your advocate and your, help you. So you just never know. Okay, seek opportunities to learn more. I love learning. And one of the best ways to learn is to have open conversations about different perspectives and to seek out opportunities that encourage and create a safe place. I want you guys to learn how to professionally disagree with each other and hold tight to your views. It's okay for other people to have views, but I want to have tools where we can respect other people and their views. And I don't want people to encourage you to change your views. So if you ever have someone making you feel like, oh, that's a bad conversation, step back. You guys know who you are, you know what you believe in, but seek opportunities to learn more.
I like it. Okay, so we're going to go over 3 basic steps of advocacy. So that's sharing your story and concerns. So the first one is to choose your issue. I know a lot of times we have all these passion projects that we want to go in and we want to fix them all on the same day. But make sure that you pinpoint the most important things that you want to get across and make sure that it's in the right place. But choose your issue. So what concerns you about your neighborhood or community or a budget item that you think might help your community? What obstacles do people with disabilities in Utah face that you feel aren't being addressed? Are there budget changes that will affect us and our group? So choose your issue. Then this is a really important part of this is know who to talk to. So who can help you, who represent you. And let's go through this and then at the end I'll visit the site and then I'll walk you guys through how to find your legislator because it's an important tool to know how to use.
Okay.
And this can like help you in other aspects of life too. Like JC said before, like we can use these skills if we're advocating for like within schools or different things in your community. So these are broad advocacy steps. Number 3 is communicating your views. So meeting with committee members, senators, and representatives who will hear your issues either in person, like at committee meetings, like we talked about, by email or by calling. And
now texting.
So utilizing those avenues to contact is going to be nice to have options. So sharing your personal story. This is not a place to share your whole life story. So sometimes we get excited about sharing what's going on with us and we kind of miss the meat or the important thing that we're asking for. I've seen this happen lots of times when we're doing like a big group advocacy where we have lots of different people sign up to testify at a committee meeting. And a lot of times you'll see it goes off the rails a little bit. So make sure that when you're preparing what you have to say, that you keep it brief and friendly. So use the simplified version of what you want to say and make sure that it demonstrates how you've been directly impacted. So like JC said, we've sat in on many meetings and listening to people advocate for different things. The ones who were the most effective followed these steps. They were brief and they identified the specific issue that they were wanting to talk about. And then always thank them for their time. Let them know that you appreciate them being willing to do this, to be a pariah, basically, to advocate for you and your needs. So just make sure when you're doing this that your message doesn't get lost, because when JC and I were preparing this, we were like, our main goal is that you guys, when you're advocating, are taken seriously. And if you can sit down and kind of even practice, you can pen out what you want to say. It's a great idea so that your message doesn't get lost. So this is an example if you want to use it, but it's just a really simple template that you can insert your issues. So obviously you identify who you are. Hello, my name's Tylee Harmon, and I'm a voter in your district. That's another important thing. When you're contacting your legislator, let them know that you are from their district. And you'd like to talk about the blank bill, or about this program, or about whatever. Insert what your issue is. I'd like the chance to share my story as a person living with a disability and how this bill or whatever is, if approved, would help support my independence. And then you can share a short story and then end with asking them for support of the bill and thank them for their time. And then always leave contact information so that they know that they can follow up with you if they have any further questions. Okay, this is something that we added in, but for those who have not before attended the LCPD reception, that's the Legislative Coalition for People with Disabilities. They do this reception every year where we invite all of the legislators to come and meet with disability groups, and it takes place in the rotunda. It will be this Thursday from 4:30 to 6. And we wanted to give you a little frame of reference, or if you're planning on coming, some expectations that or things to prepare for. So what I like to do is put myself in the shoes of a legislator. They're walking into a room full of people who want their attention. And so it's our job to make the biggest impact with the smallest amount of time. I'm talking you might get like maybe 2 minutes of their time. So it's important to leave an impression by just giving a brief professional little, hey, I'm so-and-so from your district. Thank you for showing up for us today. Like, and then tell them your issue, or just even introduce yourself. At that point, we're building relationships. So if you can just make a connection with them, make sure it's brief so you leave room for everyone who's there to have a chance to speak with their legislator. Because honestly, for a lot of us, we're not going to get the chance to set up a meeting with them maybe. So like to introduce ourselves and say, hi, I'm so-and-so from this agency. Thanks for coming. Think of us. I don't know, anything, it's small little something. But one of the tips that we had was just to dress professionally. So that doesn't mean that you have to wear a suit. You don't have to go all out, but just arrive clean, and clothes with no holes. Just, we want you guys to be taken seriously as a contact. And then, this is another important thing to know. If you don't get a chance to talk with a legislator while we're at the reception, maybe they weren't able to make it, or they were just busy the whole time, that's okay. It's not a failure to advocate. Us showing up as a full disability community is impactful. Filling up the rotunda with
Yes.
all of these different interest groups it's impactful. So if you do come and you don't get a chance to talk to your legislator, don't feel like you failed. You showed up. So this is an important thing, to be a year-round advocate. So not just during the session are we advocating for the programs that we need. But here are a couple of things that you can do. So you can get on the email alert list if you have a specific issue that you're interested in during the session. You can sign up to have an email alert every time that specific interest is brought up. You can participate with the Legislative Coalition for People with Disabilities. I linked their website on here, but those are open to anybody who has an interest in disability, and they do a great job at summarizing a lot of the legislation that's happening during the session, and then even throughout the year they meet to discuss issues that face the disability community.
Okay. So how to track what's happening. So one thing that confused me is, like, you listen to everything Tylee said about bills and appropriations. What does even that mean? Like, how do you even know? This is how you know. So tracking what is happening is very important. To get the most correct information, you have to get it from the source. Media outlets are not always the best at being completely transparent and honest. The best place to get it is the le.utah website, or the website of the actual lawmakers. But we're going to be talking about the LE website. This is where you find bills, schedule hearings. You can see the current rosters of people. You can create your own account. And this is the link. We do have a QR code on the next screen. If you want to take a picture of that, it'll direct you there. It's taken me probably 2 years to get to where I feel comfortable today advocating and attending these meetings. And it is my job. So I was working like Monday to Friday. Like, it was hard. It was hard. So please don't get discouraged if it looks like Chinese. Like, if you feel like it's not making sense, it looked like another language to me when I first started. Just play around with the website. Tylee's going to take us through it later. This is where you would go to find the bills, your lawmakers, the calendar, the budget, committees. So each of the committees and each of these groups have lawmakers on them. And these lawmakers could be in our areas. And the only way to find out is go to this website. Mm-hmm. Here is the seating chart for the Senate.
I think this might have been last year's.
Yeah, it's changed.
Yes.
But this is what it will look like. You can click on the pictures. It'll take you to their link and you can find out more about them. You can even go to, Tylee will take you there later. Let's see. Oh, okay. I'll let Tylee walk you guys through the website when we close. But the last thing I wanted to say, I think this is my last one, is remember when you contact your lawmakers to introduce yourself, be specific and to the point. Example, my name is JC. I'm a voter in your district. I'm contacting you about this bill. This is how it affects me. This is a small story of why it's a big deal. Thank you. This is my contact information. If I wanted to contact a lawmaker on the bus route, I need to make sure that that lawmaker has some type of authority in the people who vote to make changes on the bus route.
Or they're the right person to talk to, because remember, that was an important thing.
Yeah, so
That they're
when
the right person.
yeah, so when Tylee explained when we're advocating, we need to be knowing what we're advocating for and if we're reaching out to the right person.
Mhm.
So this is the contact information of the house roster, like link, the Senate phone number, like, and I don't want you to call these guys. I mean, you can if you have something to say, but what I wanted to show you with this is how accessible these people are. You can call them and leave a message. You can text them. And I want you guys to know every time you guys text with your full information, that's your voting zip code and your name. I don't think they ask for addresses, and they don't ask really for phone numbers unless you want to leave it. But do you know that that's documented? So if I told everybody in this room, we're all going to text Senator so-and-so about this bill, that would be forever documented that they had how many 18 people plus me and Tylee. I mean, that's what Tylee was explaining. There's not one person that makes a law and one person that makes change. It's a cultivation of all of us.
Yes. And so this, along with what JC was saying, I just wanted to demonstrate like that our representatives, even at the congressional level, are available to us. So like, obviously we don't, I mean, we're working on in the state legislature with this education, but I just wanted you to know, like, if for any reason your interest takes you beyond our, this branch of government, that they are accessible even at this level. So, just remember, nothing about us without us. We want to make sure that disability is representative in all the circles of the government and our laws and the things that our tax dollars go towards. So I wanted to leave this quote and then we'll do the website tour. But just to be thinking about, so your task, your only task is to be yourself. A citizen and voter who wants government policies to work for the most vulnerable as well as they do for the most powerful. That's a quote by Nancy Armady. So how about this? If you are if you're done at this point and you don't care to go over the website, this would be a good place for me to tell you thank you for taking the time to learn about our state legislature and for being brave and willing to be an advocate for the disability community. It can be kind of scary and intimidating, and
We're both still learning.
we're both still learning, and there's so much that that comes with time and just even being willing to go and like give your 2 cents on an issue. So just remember that your voice means a lot more than you think that it does. And I appreciate each and every one of you for showing up and for being an advocate, either for yourself or for a loved one. So let's do the website. Let's do it.
And again, just play around in it, investigate. It took me a whole year before I was comfortable with understanding or even explaining it. My kids asked me what this was about, and I was like, you can come.
You can come and learn.
You can come.
Okay, let me make sure I open
Before we logged on, Tylee and I were introducing ourselves to some of the candidates and new. You guys, I can't believe how young the people coming in are, and I think that's good. I think we need new views and new ideas, and I'm excited.
Me too. Okay, so this is our le.utah.gov. Very simple layout. And I've noticed over time, they've made this a lot more user-friendly. So this is the most important thing I wanted to show you. So you come over here to your legislators. and you can go anywhere as you can. So they separate it out into House and Senate. So I'm just gonna, for fun, see the House member roster. And let's see, what district do you live in, JC? Are you
Mike
11?
Schultz. Oh, yes.
Are you
Oh,
11?
he moved out.
Or
Oh,
12?
12. I'm 12.
You're 12.
He's
Okay.
my neighbor. You guys, I just have to tell you, these are not people, like, I know him. I went to school with him. I bought my house from him. So when we talk about find out who your lawmakers are, you could possibly see them in the grocery store once you're like, oh my gosh, that's my representative from my district. They live in our counties. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So I really like this tool because it helps you to see their face nice and big so you can recognize them when you go up to the Capitol and you're like, I think that's so-and-so. It gives you a good frame of reference for who they are if you don't know them personally like JC does.
Yeah.
So if you scroll down here, it'll show you what committees that representative sits on. So you can make sure that it's the right who for your issue. So Mike Schultz sits on Executive Appropriations, House Business and Labor, House Government Operations, and then Natural Resources. So Executive Appropriations, he would be a person that we would want to talk to if we had a legislative request with money attached to it.
Yes.
So let's do another one just for fun. Let's see. What about District 9? Representative Musselman. What a good name.
Serious.
So this is, I mean, obviously it lists all of contact
There is
information.
his phone number. If you call that number, someone will pick up.
Mhm.
Like, or it'll go to an answering
a
machine.
voicemail too. So let's see, executive offices, business and labor. So he maybe wouldn't be one that would be as effective to contact for a disability issue.
Yep.
Just based on
What
the
his
committees he
committees.
sits on. So do you see how easy this is? You can go in and it's not intimidating once you get the hang of like where to look for things. But that's a great tool to use, you guys. So I highly
You can't
recommend.
ruin anything. You can't mess it up. Set up an account, just learn. You don't have to, like I said, make it your full-time job. Just as Americans, our democracy is very important as far as how our government is ran. If every single person has a say and every single person's voice is heard, then the majority gets heard. So we need to be the majority for the people with disabilities.
That's right. Okay. So yes, as JC was saying, go onto that website, play around with it. Try to learn what you, or if you have an interest, chances are you can probably find it on there. There's a search tool you can use to type in like specific words to, if you're looking for a bill about minimum wage or just if anything like that, you can search it and it will bring up all of the bills that are being discussed during that session. So utilize the tools that are in front of you. And
if you're a person with the disability and want to come hang out with us on Thursday, at what time?
It says 4 to 6.
4 to 6. But if you guys want snacks, you got to come at 4 because we eat it by 4:15.
I don't.
I
Yet.
do.
Casey does.
I eat snacks. But no, come. It's strength in numbers. If you guys have any questions, you guys can email me.
Or me.
Our information is at the end of our slides. But thank you guys.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Have such a good night.
Thanks, Matt.
Did awesome, Tylee and JC. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like when the cameras come on.
I know. You guys can hop on and say, hey.
Can see us all late at night in our fancy attire.
Well, we're just sitting in my guest room right now.
Ah.
Just hanging out. I guess I can stop recording, huh? Sorry, Aubrey.